Hey, Coach Adam back here for your final class within the Essentials of Health and Wellness Google Classroom. This class is going to go over leadership for health and wellness. This is the final class in the overall classroom, as well as the final class within your Connect module. So by the end of this brief, we'd like you to learn the main objectives of the learner will be able to define leadership specifically as it relates to the Space Force and the Department of the Air Force. I'd like you to also be able to explore the importance of leadership as it relates to health and wellness because it plays a large role. And then finally, I'd like you to gain some practical strategies to actually implement these lessons learned, right? So for improving your leadership relating to shaping the culture of health and wellness within both your organization and the Space Force as a whole. I think we need to begin by discussing the core values because these are kind of our guiding tenets for how we shape our approach to leadership in the Space Force. Our 4 C's, which is our core values for the Space Force, include character, connection, commitment, and courage. Now, the first one, character. Character above all, where character above all essentially means this is the most important in terms of how we conduct ourselves as leaders. Connection toward unity essentially means we are trying to establish good relationships, which is within that connection module that we're in right now. Next is commitment to mastery, where we master all things technical and tactical, as well as our own leadership, as well as ourselves, right? That's our commitment to mastery of all things Space Force related as professionals. And then finally, for courage, to be bold, be courageous, and speak out to do what is right, and try to take actually calculated risks to, actually gain the upper hand in both leadership challenges, both tactically as well as in, in garrison environments. Now, finally, know your team member and your team leader I will statements. So in the Guardian Spirit, this is coming from the Guardian Spirit, you have 3 I will statements within each of the 4 C's for the core values. So these I will statements, there are 3 of them for each of the 4 core values. There are 3 of them for the team member, as well as 3 of them for the team leader. Now, there's a sentence followed by a brief paragraph explaining that sentence, but you should absolutely go read the Guardian Spirit and learn more about your core values that you're trying to hold yourself to, right? Now, what I think is really important is looking at not just the I will statements for each value, but then discussing the Guardian Spirit as an overall sort of aspect or view for leadership and for how to conduct yourselves as a Space Force Guardian. Discuss the Guardian Spirit for leadership development. If you're a leader or if you are a subordinate, ask your leader to lead you through a class discussing the Guardian Spirit. If you're a leader, take an opportunity for a leadership professional development coursework using the Guardian Spirit as a framework or a model. When we look at the Department of Air Force as a whole, DAF leadership, we can first look at the definition of leadership coming from AFDP 1. AFDP 1 defines leadership as the art and science of motivating, influencing, and directing airmen to understand and accomplish JFC objectives, which is Joint Force Command. And so this is important because we're looking at both the art and science of motivating, influencing, and directing. So it's not just one thing. It's not a binary like this is leadership, and this is not. It is an art and a science. So there are certain sort of hard or hardware principles that need to be understood to be a great leader, as well as there's this sort of art of leadership as it relates to how we conduct ourselves, or sort of more soft skills that go in alignment with being a good leader. When we look at the Guardian Spirit for some examples of leadership highlights, we can see a couple big things, but again, I recommend you go through the Guardian Spirit yourself and try to find your own highlights. As it relates to health and wellness, here are some of the big ones that I like to focus in on. So first, leadership is complicated. It's a complicated human endeavor, but it's never mastered, and we can always strive to improve. So just because it's complicated doesn't mean that it's impossible to get better at. Leadership is a skill, and leadership is something that we can continuously focus on developing because it's never mastered. There will always be new challenges that you will face throughout your military career, throughout your professional career, and throughout your life. What's interesting is you just get better at solving problems so you can solve more complex problems, right? The problems never go away. The leadership dilemmas never go away. You just get better at solving them. You just get better at handling them if you improve your leadership abilities. Now, when we look at it as a complicated human endeavor, that's also because it relates back to our connection module, our relationships. How do we build relationships? Because we can't motivate or influence or lead other people if we don't actually think about the human element of leadership and thinking about those soft skills, the art of leadership. Good leaders also seek feedback actively. So they're not just continuously saying, I know I'm a good leader, and they're going to go and go forth and conquer and think that they know everything because they've been a leader for 5 years or 10 years or 20 years. The best leaders actively seek feedback from their organization, from the members in their organization, both above and below them within the chain of command. They seek feedback for them to improve. And that feedback hopefully is constructive, but it's also received in a manner that is not trying to take offense to it, but they're actually trying to seek opportunities for them to improve their own leadership skills and abilities. Further, team leaders, so I talked about the team leader and team member. Team leaders are also team members. Really great leaders, a lot of times, are also great subordinates. All team leaders are also team members, and what's interesting as well is team members can also be team leaders. For example, if you are a lower ranking individual within your organization's chain of command, that doesn't mean that you're not a team leader. You may not be charged with the command of others in your organizational structure at this time. However, you can lead yourself first, lead by example by you embodying the characteristics of what you believe to be a great leader. And then you, as a team member, functionally become a team leader despite there being a sort of disconnect or a chain of command structure that demonstrates maybe you're not currently assigned a leadership position, but we are all leaders as well. So just the same, all team leaders are team members. So you might be a leader in your organization, but you also need to think about how your leadership in that organization affects the members underneath you. And you should always also think about those above you within your organizational chain of command. How are you functioning as a team member within their team? Within them, being them as a team leader, how are you functioning as a team member? All of these things are incredibly important. And then finally, looking at extreme ownership. The famous book by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin, right? Extreme ownership. When we look at team leaders and team members, a lot of the things in the Guardian Ideal or the Guardian Spirit come back to extreme ownership, where we take credit for our team's failures, but then we let our team take the credit for all of our team's successes. We take extreme ownership of all things that go right and wrong in our organization because we are the leader, and it's up to us to provide purpose, direction, and motivation toward achieving a common goal or achieving a mission. Now, what's really important is there are different types of leadership as well, right? We may have dealt with someone who just tells you what to do and they expect you to go do it just like a robot, right? That would be a transactional leader. What we'd like to see is a more effective type of leadership called transformational leadership. Now, the definition of transformational leadership is leaders who intellectually stimulate their employees. They act as role models, they formulate a clear vision for the future, and they show understanding for individuals' needs. What I think is important to highlight throughout that definition is this person clearly cares for the individuals that are under their charge or under their command, right? Transformational leaders think about you as an individual. They don't just think about you as a number or statistic or, your name on a sheet of paper. It's so much more than that. Transformational leadership is someone who truly cares about the members in their organization and how they can effectively lead those members to achieve the overall goal of the mission, as well as improving their overall team member, their knowledge, skills, and abilities as it relates to their personal life, their professional life, right? A comprehensive picture of that individual. You feel truly cared for when you are dealing or working with a transformational leader. Now, a transformational leadership actually positively influences employee well-being. There's a direct correlation for transformational leadership as a style of leadership to improve the mental and physical health of your organization. Transformational leadership and quality leadership actually increases or influences your own well-being as a leader. You being a more transformational leader rather than more of a transactional leader actually has a direct correlation to your own personal well-being. So developing the knowledge, skills, and abilities of how to be a high-functioning transformational leader can actually improve your overall mental and physical health. We'll talk about that more in a bit. Next, on the flip side, passive leadership decreases mental health and it decreases the work attitude of the employees in that organization. Now, essentially passive leadership is someone who doesn't really give you a direction. They don't really give you feedback on a routine or a regular basis based off the actions that you are completing or the jobs that you have. A passive leader is someone who just lets their organization flow or lets the organization run or says like, they can handle it. We don't want to see passive leadership be the dominant leadership style for any leaders, because what that does is it can directly decrease the mental health and the overall attitude of the guardians or airmen in our organizations. So we want to try to avoid passive leadership. We want to try to provide direction, provide motivation, provide, hey, this is the why behind the tasks that we have to complete right now. Now, finally, quality leadership improves employee mental health. So getting away from passive leadership, improving your own leadership knowledge, skills, and abilities, and becoming a more quality leader actually improves the mental health of your organization. A really interesting note is your leader can actually have as much of an influence on your mental health as individuals in your family. Maybe someone that you spend your most time with, like your spouse or your significant other. The quality of the leader in your organization or the leader at your work can actually influence your mental health or actual happiness and satisfaction with your job more so than what your spouse or significant other can. And that just goes to show the importance of leadership in a health and wellness environment. Now, for the next piece, we look at worksite wellness programs, right? So you've probably seen some of these things maybe at Google or maybe at other programs, large-scale programs that talk about worksite wellness. Now, it depends a lot on how people strategize to implement these programs for how they work, but there are a lot of underlying factors that we can take care of as both a team member and a team leader. First of all, the programs work. Worksite wellness programs work, right? We can go read either one of those systematic reviews I have linked, but these programs work. They're directly correlated to improved physical health, improved weight management, improved mental health, and actually decreased musculoskeletal injuries, right? Leadership support for wellness programs is what's most critical. Leadership support of the worksite wellness program that's actually happening actually is one of the biggest influential factors for the worksite wellness program overall being successful. So leading by example, by actually participating in the worksite wellness program, or actually being a leader by example by you going for walk breaks or eating healthy or speaking about sleep and nutrition and movement in a positive manner, or speaking about yourself and your own health and wellness in a positive, motivational manner, can actually influence directly the success of any worksite wellness program. And so it is your responsibility as a leader, not just to lead the troops for the tactical mission set, but also as it relates to health and wellness, it is your responsibility as a leader to invest in the worksite wellness programs that are in your organization. So you as a leader have a dramatic impact on the success of any of the wellness initiatives that are going on across the Department of Air Force, across the military, and honestly across anything that's going on in your organization specifically. So a little bit more on leadership by example, right? Language matters. I just talked about your buy-in to the worksite wellness program or to any program really makes a huge difference. So I think you can retroactively analyze, how do you talk about health and wellness? What's your reaction to being assigned group physical training? Let's say that your squadron gets assigned group physical training. Today is Tuesday, and I'm looking at Thursday's calendar, and then it comes out and says, hey, we're going to do a squadron PT event on Thursday morning at 06. What's your reaction there? Now, not just your reaction internally, but what's your reaction externally to the group? Are you a leader who maybe says, oh gosh, like, I don't want to go to physical training. Like, hey guys, hey, quick announcement. We got to go to physical training, squadron PT this Thursday morning at 06. Hey, I know it's not what we want to do. I know we got some moans and groans, but hey, we're just going to get through it. Hey, just show up. You don't have to try that hard. It's probably going to be sports PT anyways, right? And you kind of just drone on thinking about going to squadron PT. Well, that has a direct influence on how individuals in your unit perceive going to squadron PT. And then how you reacted to that dramatically influences how they react to that in future scenarios as well. So all the things I do to influence the people, the team members in my organization, how I react to these types of things, maybe how I reacted to that squadron PT session being on the calendar, could actually influence how one of my team members reacts to squadron PT in a year from now or 10 years from now. You can actually be shaping their perception of any of these wellness initiatives or any of those physical training initiatives for years, for the rest of their military career, right? And that should not be our overall goal. Our overall goal should be to improve the language we use surrounding health and wellness, okay? Do we have discussions, let's say, on the lack of sleep? There's a general thing, like sort of a moniker of like, don't worry about it, I'll sleep when I'm dead, right? I can push through. Maybe you stayed up late playing video games, or maybe you stayed up late, scrolling social media, and you speak about sleep in such a way that is just, flippant, or, something that you don't need to focus heavily on. But, I think hopefully after you've watched this classroom, you can clearly tell that that's not the case and that that's not true, right? So how do we discuss a lack of sleep? Do we give people a little bit of empathy if they're struggling with maybe a newborn or a puppy, or just, struggling with sleep, hygiene overall, and saying, hey, I want you to try to take focus on what you're doing for your sleep hygiene tonight. Could you get off work an extra hour earlier because maybe you're busy in the evenings? Could I get this person off an hour earlier today so that they can go focus on maybe banking some sleep tonight? If that's the case, that's fantastic. Like that's showing that you are a transformational leader and that you actually truly care about that individual in your team. I think another important part that doesn't really get talked about a ton is self-degradation, or sort of just poking fun, whether that's at yourself or at others. Now, we want to try to avoid self-degradation, and we want to try to avoid poking fun at others. And the reason why is because let's say that there's two scenarios we can explore. Our first scenario is you're a leader and you're pretty fit. You have a high level of health and wellness. You score pretty highly on your physical fitness assessment, or just generally speaking, you're known as being a healthy individual. Now, let's say that you struggled on a run workout this past weekend, and you say, gosh, like I'm just so slow. I'm so not proud of myself. I'm just like, I'm a piece of crap, like whatever, I'll come back and train harder next time. I just know I'm not good enough. Well, if you have someone in your unit who looks up to you as a role model, and you as a healthy, high-performing leader are over there speaking negatively about your performance, which may still be drastically better than their performance, and they look up to you, well, how do you think that makes them feel when they hear you speaking negatively about yourself? If you're speaking negatively about yourself, well, maybe they're thinking, well, gosh, if my respected leader thinks that way about themselves, they must not think highly of me. And it may not be a conscious decision to sort of feel that way. And you may just be doing that to say like, oh, I'm trying to humble myself. But there's a certain aspect or a balance, a dichotomy of not self-degrading or not actually poking fun at yourself versus being overly cocky or overly confident. Of course, we want to fall in the middle of that spectrum and feel confident in our knowledge, skills, and abilities, know that we have room to grow, but not be overly confident or cocky. At the same time, though, not trying to hate on our own knowledge, skills, and abilities, hate on our own performance, or hate on our own health and wellness practices, because that actually encourages that individual, that team member on your team, to go and maybe degrade themselves that night personally, or for however long they're going through their own health journey, right? And so overall, self-degradation is a net negative for individuals in your organization. So poking fun at yourself or poking fun at others, or maybe saying like, oh, well, of course that person's going to be successful. They've always been fit. Again, like that, it doesn't really provide a culture of individuals who care about one another, because we can encourage that person by saying like, hey, like, John has worked very, very hard at attaining that level of fitness. Of course he's doing well, right? Because he's worked his tail off and rewarding the hard work aspect that got him to that level of fitness, or that got her to that level of fitness to be able to perform at a high level. That's a lot different than poking fun or self-degradation. right? We want to try to avoid that type of sort of whatever you would say is humbling yourself. Now, the second scenario we can look at is someone who is maybe, you're a leader, but maybe you're currently on your own health journey trying to improve. Maybe you're on a plan of your own that is, with the goal of improving your body composition and doing better on your PFA, scoring above a 90, right? Now, for that individual, if we go about, again, self-degradation and we degrade ourselves or say, oh gosh, I'm so overweight, I'm so fat, of course I'm not going to run fast, right? And you continuously make jokes about yourself and being like an overweight or non-high performing individual. Well, again, that is showing other people that might be at a similar point in their health journey as you. It shows other people that it's okay or acceptable to speak negatively about themselves. And again, that's not the precedent we want to set. Just the same as the precedent we set by walking past a piece of trash in our area of operations, we set the same precedent by speaking negatively about ourselves. We set the same precedent by calling myself names or negative names or treating myself without respect. So we want to avoid self-degradation and poking fun at all costs. Now, some final notes for leadership by example is that your health and wellness, as I noted, is directly correlated with your leadership abilities. Now, I say that because that shouldn't just be looking at my own leadership abilities now and thinking maybe I'm not good enough or that's the reason you're not fit. Of course, there are other variables at play, right? Of course, it's more complicated than that, but it has a strong relationship between the two, right? What I think that this should be taken as and how we should interpret this from the research is this highlights the importance for leadership development. It highlights the importance of mentorship. It highlights the importance of, if you're a leader right now, right, as a team leader, discussing the Guardian spirit, discussing the core values of the Space Force, discussing the core values of the military as an organization, right? Because by having those discussions, by progressing or actually doing some development with your team members on your team, you can actually directly improve the leadership knowledge, skills, and abilities of the team members within your team. And again, that might mean that team member goes off in 5 years or 10 years or 20 years from now to be an incredible leader, to be an incredible mentor for other tens, hundreds, maybe thousands of other individuals. And so I think, again, it goes to show the importance of leadership as it relates to health and wellness, and leadership as it relates to you potentially being a mentor for other people, or you actively seeking out mentors who maybe you respect. You see a lot of the leadership characteristics we've discussed emulated in one of the leaders you respect. Well, reach out to that person. Say, hey, I always appreciated your leadership. Could I be maybe mentored by you on a once a month or once a quarter half-an-hour Teams call? That could be plenty. That could be enough to steer your overall abilities in leadership specifically to maybe improve, right? Or consistently improve. Or maybe because you see that meeting is on the calendar, you're going to deliberately go out and seek opportunities to improve your leadership or opportunities for areas of discussion for the next discussion with your mentor, with your overall mentor, right? And so by doing that and both being a mentor and finding people to mentor you, you can directly improve your leadership abilities and maybe improve your own mental health, your own well-being, and the physical and mental health and well-being of the team members within your team. Now, a lot of the stuff that we're looking at now, because the Space Force is so young, is culture for leadership, culture of health and wellness. One of the first things is we have to recognize that there are inherent challenges to be healthy, specifically in the Space Force. Of course there are, right? There are a lot of society changes right now with the ease of fast food delivery services, right? A lot of really easy society changes that we can blame to say maybe why we're not healthy or why maybe our team members blame the society for them not being healthy. There's a lot of social pressure, right? If there's social pressure of, hey, we're going to go out for drinks on Friday because there's a going away, and I am currently focused on maybe losing weight, or I'm currently focused on maybe being sober, and because I've struggled with alcohol in the past. Well, if there's social pressure to drink, or if there's social pressure for you to do something that you don't want to do, whether that's eat something unhealthy or do something unhealthy that you don't want to do, that social pressure definitely is a challenge to be healthy, right? Again, that's where we talked about healthy boundaries earlier in this Google Classroom, and you can go watch more on that in a different class. But that goes to show the importance of social pressure as a challenge to be healthy, right? And that goes to show the importance of social pressure and actually sort of directly targeting against that social pressure for you as a leader, not letting social pressure be the reason why someone breaks their diet protocol or maybe has a drink that they didn't want to have in the first place. Another aspect is the influence of people and content around us. We directly address this in Health in 100 Words by saying surround yourself with people and content that support your goals. That obviously, if we're surrounded by an organization as a team, if we are overall eating unhealthy, we don't go work out, as a group, we never talk positively about working out, and we drink alcohol twice a month as a group on Friday nights, well, hey, the influence of the people around us right now are demonstrating that they don't care about health and wellness. So what does that mean for me? Well, if I want to be a good, high-functioning member of this group, it makes me feel from a social pressure standpoint that I need to go and do those things as well. And I think that's a faulty understanding of leadership, because we need to influence the people and content around us as leaders by providing a good opportunity for our team members within our team to be the best versions of themselves. It's also seen in snack bars, right? We have a lot of really poor quality food choices in our snack bars, maybe for our shift work, right? Could you as a leader even just add in healthier options? Even just the simple aspect of not taking away the options that are currently available, because I understand that a lot of those are fundraising and you get to go and use those as unit funds in the future. However, what about just adding in healthier options? And if they're not frequently selected, maybe you could, run a discount or bring in some other options, yourself on your own dollar as a leader to give people options, or, introduce them to something that you enjoy that's a healthy snack, right? So instead of bringing in, a tray of cookies on a holiday weekend while you're on shift, why don't you bring in one of your favorite healthy snacks? Or just have an opportunity for everyone to bring in 10 servings of their favorite healthy snack, right? We can do those things with unit funds. We can do those things with stocking our snack bars, right? We can have opportunities to improve our health and wellness within our organization as leaders by doing really small things. The final thing is, of course, an inherent challenge is shift work, right? As the general aspect, I know this is previously discussed in the sleep slides, but shift work from a leadership standpoint, if you have an influence on the shift work schedule of your team, I think there's some basic aspects here that we need to consider. First, don't rotate shifts too frequently. Don't work greater than 12-hour days if you at all can manage that. Don't work greater than 40-hour weeks if you can manage that. And don't justify not doing a workout because of shift work. And when we look at the first three, rotating frequently directly decreases our mental health and our physical health. Working greater than 12-hour days directly decreases our occupational performance, and we accumulate far too much mental fatigue for us to have a high level of occupational performance. The same thing goes for 40-hour weeks. Not only do we decrease your occupational performance, we actually increase the risk of error. And then finally, justifying no workouts due to shift work. If you're working the night shift and you just say, I'm on nights this shift, I shouldn't work out. That doesn't mean that you can't get some movement on the ops floor. You could, do some step-ups. You could do lunges. You could do push-ups. You could do sit-ups. You could do a 20 to 30-minute walk before you go on shift. Drive to work a little early. Go for a walk down and back in the hallway. Go for a walk down and back in the parking lot for 10 minutes. And that might be enough for you. There are other opportunities for daily movement, which we discussed earlier in one of those modules, in the Move module within this classroom. But definitely do not justify not working out at all while you're on a night shift. The things you should do with your shift work is take timely breaks. So every so often for your timely breaks, whatever that is for your occupational demands, right? Whatever operational tempo that your organization has, take timely breaks. Another thing you can do is remain on the same shift on and off work for no less than 2 and no more than around 12 weeks, and then gauge feedback of your members. So I say about 2 to 12 weeks, because if we stay on the night shift for less than 2 weeks and we go back to day shift, that directly decreases the sort of synchronicity of my body's circadian rhythm, which is a bad thing. We want to let our body get into a rhythm However, looking at the social implications of staying on night shift for too long, somewhere around that 12-week-ish window, if we stay on night shift for longer than 12 weeks, that's also been correlated with a decrease of work attitude and a decrease of overall job satisfaction. And so we don't want to stay on night shift for too long, but we also don't want to stay on it for such a short period of time that our body can't re-regulate. It'll be walking around dysregulated as a functioning system, but not a high functioning system, okay? And then finally, gauge feedback, right? Again, leaders seek feedback from the team members within their organization. So gauge feedback for what maybe you could do to improve the shift work calendar, the shift work schedule of the individuals in your unit. Now, I think we discussed a lot of things as it relates to leadership for health and wellness, but I think I need to leave you guys with a lot of practical strategies to improve the health and wellness of your organization. So first, use the frameworks we discussed in this classroom. Use Health in 100 Words. Share it, post it, print it off on a sheet of paper, or whenever we come out with it, print that poster and post one of the posters on the wall. Discuss the aspects of Health in 100 Words. Ask people what's their favorite section. Ask individuals what maybe doesn't make sense to them and see if you or someone else in your team can explain that principle in a better manner. Try to integrate walking meetings or daily walking groups. Could you go for a 10-minute meeting as a walking meeting down and back in the hallway if it's not necessary to be in a skiff? Could we do daily walking groups for 10 minutes before lunch or 10 to 20 minutes after lunch? Maybe that's outdoors. We go get some sunlight. Maybe we get into a daily walking group for a mentorship meeting, right? It doesn't have to be a lunch and learn, or we're all going to go sit down and kind of just discuss, a specific topic. We could go use that as a walking meeting. We could use that for an opportunity for daily movement. Next one is use positive language around health and wellness. Speak positively about yourself. Speak positively about the 5 factors of health. Don't drone on about squadron PT or about how challenging it is to eat healthy. And that might be challenging. These things might be challenging, but by using positive language and again, providing purpose and direction and motivation toward or for your team members, using that positive language around those 5 factors of health can dramatically improve the health and wellness of your entire organization, you included. Next, encourage open conversations around mental health. Of course, that one is pretty clear and evident. Another opportunity you have is to host competitions on standard and non-standard events. What I'd say is standard events is stuff like, a foot race, maybe like a mile for time. You could do things like, a 1,000-pound club for squat, bench, deadlift, which a lot of gyms have. But you could also do non-standard events. If those of you have maybe a wearable on your wrist, you could actually track sleep, for example. And maybe you want to have a non-standard competition, which is pretty informal. You're not having like a super formal sort of reward for it, but someone who gets the highest sleep score on average over the next month. Like that'd be a non-standard sort of competition that you could host. It's non-standard, but it might improve the health and wellness of your organization by hosting that informal or non-standard competition. Then the last 2 is seek feedback from the group. Seek opportunities from the members in your organization, from the team members in your unit, to actually provide insight into what they think might be valuable to improve the health and wellness of your organization. And then finally, of course, reach out to the Grit anytime. Reach out to any one of us team members, and we can help you create wellness initiatives that go in alignment with your overall intent. Here are some references that I use to discuss a lot of the strategies that we've gone over today. And I think that this is a good opportunity to say thank you for joining us within this Google Classroom as an overall class. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us at Schriever Grit, or feel free to reach out to any Grit member that is at your installation, or as any of you in the remote units, reach out to the remote Guardian Resilience team as well. You have a ton of people, a ton of professionals that are here ready to help you with an evidence-based approach. And that's what we were hoping to achieve throughout this Google Classroom in its entirety and throughout every single class we delivered. With that being said, again, thanks for joining us. Have a good day.